Hi there, and after last week when I built the upscaled version of the classic pirate treasure chest, this week we're going to finish it off and make the lid. But also, as promised last week, I'm also going to announce my next huge upscaled project. So stick around to see the lid and also find out what that upscaled project's going to be. So yes, last week I built a huge, giant, upscaled version of the classic LEGO pirate treasure chest. And I've had loads of suggestions in the comments for upgrades of how we can improve this. However, with only a few days since the video went live, and today when I'm filming, which is Wednesday, I haven't had any time to buy the parts to do the upgrades. But today we will have a look at them, and I think at some point I'm going to have to do a version 2 upgrade video and put them into practice. But in last week's video, I also promised that in this week's video, I would also announce my next huge upscaled project, which is going to be far bigger than any project I've done before. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know it all started with the upscaled space buggy, and that set had 11 pieces to upscale. I then moved on to the upscaled mini loader, and that set had 14 pieces, plus I had to build the hard hat and the striped vest for the workman, and I went one stage further than the space buggy in that some of the pieces could be taken apart, just like the regular sized LEGO set can. I also made a few minifigure accessories like the upscaled briefcase and the upscaled envelope. And of course I'm currently doing the upscaled treasure chest, with the base part last week and the lid this week. But the next set which I'm going to build has been kicking around in my head for a very long time now. However, with the jump from 14 pieces in the mini loader to 64 pieces in this new set, I wanted to make sure that I could actually build it and it was achievable before I announced it to everyone. But just before I tell you what that set is, as always, a very quick shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for your support, it really is appreciated, especially when I'm embarking on such huge projects like the next one I'm going to do, which is going to take an awful lot of time, an awful lot of pieces, and therefore an awful lot of money. Also, a huge thank you to the few people who gave me super thanks this week, which is a one-off donation you can add to a chat comment. I do have to apologise because just before filming I tried to look up what their names were and YouTube won't report those names back to me right now. They've got some glitch in their super thanks system this evening. But those of you who gave donations to this project, you know who you are, and thank you so much, it really is appreciated. And if anyone else wants to become a channel member and get their name on a brick in my videos, you can click the join button below this video or the link in the description and it'll tell you how. Or if you'd like to give a one-off donation to this project, you can always give a super thanks in the comments below. Or if you're buying from lego.com, you could use my affiliate link in the description below. It doesn't cost you anything at all, but Lego give me a small commission on everything people buy. But enough about raising funds for this massive project, let's get into what it actually is. Now, loads of people made guesses in the comments on last week's video about what the set was going to be, but very few people actually guessed it correctly. I think it actually only came down to about 3 or 4 people, and I think partly that's because I said the set had 64 pieces in it, and that's what brickset.com says it has. However, if you were looking on bricklink.com, that site reports the set as having only 56 pieces, which I presume is why so many people were guessing other sets. And I think it's down to one site including the minifig parts and one site not. However, congratulations has to go to the Hutches, who commented very early on after last week's video, "Upscale minifigs get hungry. They need a snack at the bar," which was wonderfully subtle and absolutely spot on, because the set I'm going to build is set 675, which is called Snack Bar, from 1979. Now, like I said, I'm taking a break from vehicles and I decided to do a building, and this is one of the earliest buildings that LEGO made for the new minifigures which came out in the late 70s. Now, in the instructions to this set, there are actually only 9 steps, so as an absolute bare minimum, this is going to be 9 videos at least. And there are a few very tricky pieces which I'm going to have to work on, which will probably take up an entire video on their own. And yes, I'm looking at you, red classic minifig door from the 70s. The other thing which is going to be slightly problematic building this set is the sheer size of it. With upscaling, we multiply everything by 6, so this 1x1 brick becomes 6x6, and this 1x2 tile becomes 6x12, and the base of the snack bar set is 8x16, which scales up to 48x96. So just for a reference, that means the base of this set is going to be 3 of these 32x32 base plates long, with 3 16x32 base plates in front of them, which is going to end up absolutely massive and slightly problematic for me to fit on my build desk here. So like with other upscaled projects, we may have to do a little bit of on-location shooting, either in my dining room or on the kitchen floor. Now, you are going to have to be patient with this project, as it's going to take an awful long time to collect all the parts that I'm going to need. But I have started to get parts together, as I thought they'd be tricky to get in the such large quantities that I need them in. Now, the snack bar is made up an awful lot of white bricks, so I've been starting to buy an awful lot of white bricks bricks and plates. Now on top of those white bricks we're going to need an awful lot of white studs, as I'd like to take this set apart as completely as possible. I'm hoping that it'll only be the very lowest layer of bricks which I won't take apart. As for reasons that I'll come on to in a minute, I think the bottom layer of white bricks is going to have to be fixed to the green base plate. Now fortunately, the wonderfully useful 4x4 round brick which I used a lot in the space buggy is available in white, but not in green for the base plate or blue for the roof. And recently I fortunately stumbled across a seller on Bricklink who just happened to have an awful lot of those white bricks which he was selling off at a very reasonable price, so I bought an awful lot of them. Now to go around those studs I usually use 2x4 tiles, and fortunately on the Southampton Lego store pick-a-brick wall last month, what should I find but 2x4 tiles. And for this project I'm going to need just over 500 of them, and in this box I managed to cram in 538, all for the bargain price of only £16, which would have cost me far more if I'd bought them on Bricklink or Lego.com's Pick-a-Brick. Now after looking around on Bricklink, one part that I did realise I was going to have great difficulty buying in large quantities, and that was the green round 4x4 brick. So I have placed a large Pick-a-Brick order on Lego.com, and I've got 128 of them. You'll also notice in there some 16x16 green plates, plus a few navy blue and orange classic space air tanks. And lastly, the other piece I've been collecting in large quantities is 6x6 blue plates, to build those gigantic blue plates for the roof. So that's the announcement. I hope you're all pleased with the set that I've chosen to build next. Now this series isn't going to start straight away, and before we get going on the build proper, we are going to build the original set and go through the pieces used to see which ones are going to be the trickier ones to build at upscale. But that's enough about future projects. Let's get this lid built and the treasure chest finished off. Now last week I did ask whether you thought I should pad out these panels with plates behind to bring these tiles forward so the recess is slightly less. And that's because the recess on the original chest is really very small. But I was concerned that having built the keyhole out of bricks, the deeper recess around the keyhole would show up greatly against the shallower recesses on the side. And many people came up with the same solution, and that's using the relatively new 1x2 tile with this 45-degree cutoff. And if I use two 1x6 tiles and two of those new tiles with the 45-degree slopes and a 1x2 at the bottom, they will happily sit around that keyhole. Like that. So what I can do is I can have snot bricks around, regular bricks behind the keyhole, and build this structure so that the recesses will be the same. Now like I said earlier, there hasn't been enough time between last week's video and getting the comments and filming this week's video to get any of these parts delivered. So it'll definitely have to wait for a version 2 upgrade video. But thank you to everyone for making that suggestion. Now just like with the base of the chest, we're starting off the lid with 4 6x12 plates. And onto those plates we're adding 4 2x12 plates. So we're going to put one at each end. So one there and one there, and then to line up with the panels below you need to have a 5 stud gap, and then on here we've got that 6 stud gap in the middle, and then another 5 stud gap, and one goes there, and that's the start of the base. Now for the base of the chest I wanted the inside to be smooth, which is why I used snot bricks and regular bricks on the outside and made it 2 studs thick so I could disguise all those parts on the outside. However, for the lid you're not going to be able to see on the inside, so I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. I'm going to recess things using an awful lot of jumper plates. So we're going to add 5, 10, 15, 20 and 2 lots of 6 as well, so talk amongst yourselves while I do that. Now I know that it makes some people sad when I use different coloured bricks inside builds, but I also know it makes other people happy when I hide pink bricks inside them. But as I need some support structure inside, I'm going to use some cheap tiles of different colours to go inside. So we've got 2 yellow ones to go in here, and we've got some of these new light orange colours to go on each side. And to keep for the pink brick people happy, we've got some 1x1s just to go on the ends of those 1x4 oranges. And that's ready for our next layer. Now last week I did say we're going to need an awful lot of these arch pieces, and here they all are. However, we're going to need even more of these curved bricks, and here they are. Now at each end there's going to be a slight gap between those arch pieces, so we're going to fill that up with a 1x2 brick with a 1x2 plate on top, another 1x2 plate, and another 1x2 brick, and that's going to sit in the middle on this end. And I've got another piece exactly the same, and that's going to sit at the middle on the other end. Now, to support the arch pieces, I'm going to use an awful lot of those curved bricks, and some of them aren't strictly speaking necessary. I could have used other parts, but I was ordering so many of them, I thought it was easier just to order a few more. So they're going to go all the way along, 2 at that end, 2 on this rib here, 2 more there, and then 2 more on this end. Like that. I'm going to duplicate that on this side. And we're ready for the larger arch pieces to go on top. And they just click on top of those arches all the way down, like this. 2 at that end, 2 on this rib here, 2 more here, and then 2 more down at this end. Like that. And just like before, we're going to have to duplicate that on the other side. Now, just before we seal this up and we won't be able to get inside anymore, we're just going to add a few plates in the middle to hold all these parts together. Now, on each side of the 2 centre ribs, I'm going to add a 2x2 plate. So I'm going to have one there like that, and one on the other side there, and then hidden in between them, I'm going to have a green plate that side, and then we're going to do the same on the other side, a 2x2 on each side of the rib, and then a green passing through, holding it all together. And I've just referred back to my original Bricklink Studio plan, and I realised that I put the 1x4 and the 1x1 tile the wrong way round. What I had planned to do was put it this way round, and then the 1x4s help hold that join together as well. So I swapped all of the others around too. But as often happens between designing in Bricklink Studio and building in real bricks, these plates coming through the middle of here is only actually hanging on by 2 studs this side, so it's actually still fairly fragile at each end like this. So what I'm going to do is move the 2x2 plate from this side and put it on the other side, and move the green plate 2 studs over. So with the 2x2 moved from here to there, the green plate now slides all the way through like that. So we've now got 3 studs on this side of the joint and 3 studs on the other side, so it's equidistant and giving it a lot more strength. So I've done the same to the other end, and I've also added another 2x6 in the middle for extra strength. But that's one of the reasons I like building this way. I design it all in Bricklink Studio, and I never actually put it together in real bricks until I film. And then if things aren't quite right, you can come along with me for the journey and see how I fix them. So next, let's get these curved panels done in the middle. So next, let's get the curved panels done in between. So while I do that, have a quick ponder about what you're going to comment on my video this week. And remember, as always, I do still reply to every comment I get on every one of my videos. So with all those in place, next we're going to add some plates on top of them. So in the middle, I've got a 1x6 to go on each side. That holds all those together. And then on the sides, because we've only got 5, we've got a 1x3 and then a 1x2. And we'll do the same on each of the others. Oopsie, 1x2 and a 1x3. And same down this end, 1x3s. And then 1x2s. Oops, cool, there we go. Next we're going to build some panels to join these together. First of all, a 5x5 for each end, and then a 5x6 to go in the middle. And firstly for the 5x5, so I've got a 3x3 plate and 2 1x3 plates. We're going to join those together with a 2x3 tile, a 1x3 tile, and another 2x3 tile, and across the top a 2x3 tile in the other direction, and a 2x2 in the corner, and we've got our 5x5 panel. And then that clicks on here and then joins all those arches together. And then I've built exactly the same for the other end to go on there. And then for the 5x6 panel that's going in the middle, I've got 2 of those 3x3 plates, and I'm going to put 2 2x3 tiles, and then 3 more underneath like that. Then that one's going to go across the middle. Then lastly, we need to make some attachment points on top for those 4 upscaled studs. So on the very end, we're going to put 1x4 tiles, like that. And then just in front of them, we're going to put two 1x2 plates. And then fill in the gaps with some teeny tiny 1x1 tiles. Two there above the plates and two below, like that. And that's the two ends done. And then in the middle, we're going to put some 2x2 plates in the middle with some 1x2 tiles above and 1x2 tiles below, and we're ready for our studs. Now at the end of last week's video I left you with 3 options on how we could build the upscaled studs for the top of the chest. Now I said normally I'd do it with 2 plates with some tiles on top, however the 4x4 round plate doesn't exist in reddish brown, it only exists in dark brown. So if we took 2 plates together, then we put a 2x2 tile in the middle and then 4 2x2 macaroni tiles around the outside. So that's our first option. It's smooth on top, it's the correct size, however it's the wrong colour underneath. Then I said our next option is to just use a 4x4 round brick. It's going to be the correct colour all the way through, it's going to be the correct height, however it's going to have studs on top. Like that. And then our final option is to also use one of the 4x4 round bricks, but to add a layer of the tiles on top to make it smooth. So we've got our 2x2 in the middle, and then our macaroni tiles around the outside, like that. And this option, like the previous one, is the correct colour all the way through. Like the first one, it's smooth on top, however its downfall is that it's 1 plate too high. So those are the 3 options. And from the comments on last week's video, the overwhelming loser is this one. No one wanted to have dark brown in the set at all. So down at this end we've got the correct height but without the smooth tiles on top, and then down at this end we've got smooth on top but 1 plate too high. And it's really close, but I think personally I find the smooth look on this is going to override the height difference between the two. And a lot of people in the comments last week suggested that I make them this way, however I sink them by 1 plate into the top of the lid, and obviously you can see now the way I was building the lid that isn't possible, and without a complete redesign and buying an awful lot of extra parts that wasn't going to be possible to do today. And this is what it looks like with 4 smooth studs. And this is what it looks like with 4 smooth studs, which are ever so slightly too tall. So the only thing left to do is add some hinge plates along the bottom, and then we can add it to the bottom of the treasure chest. And a few people in the comments last week did ask why I'd left this layer of tiles 1 plate lower than the rest of it, and that's because I was planning to use 2x2 hinge plates, so I needed an ever so slight recess for them to sit in, otherwise the whole lid wouldn't sit flat. So hopefully the whole thing should just click into the place on the back, like that. And we finally have our finished upscaled treasure chest with an opening lid. Now, a lot of people did put in the comments last week that they were unsure about using hinge bricks and plates for the opening mechanism, and they didn't think it would be able to hold its own weight, and they were suggesting other ways to do it. But as you can see, using 12 of those along the back, it's perfectly capable of holding its own weight and holding itself up. Quite a few other people also suggested that instead of using lightsaber bars in the middle of the handles, I should use Technic axles, so they would stop spinning independently of each other. However, you can see with the lightsaber bars inside, they don't spin independently at all. You can turn one side and the other half moves with it. A few people also commented that they thought it was a shame that it wouldn't be able to hold its own weight under the small handles, so that upscaled minifigures wouldn't be able to hold it. However, as you can see, yes, it's really easy to pick up. The handles are perfectly strong enough and can hold its own weight. Now, I'm not sure if this next part will stay on the chest, but one last decorative feature is this little latch on the inside of the lid, which clicks into place when you close it. And for that, I got 2 of these inverted slope pieces. So if we lift up the lid and place them on the inside like that, that will give us some kind of representation of that latch piece. But as for part 2 of version 1 of the treasure chest, I think we're complete. I definitely want to bring these panels out slightly and also tile around the lock area, so make sure you're subscribed so when I do an update version in a few weeks' time you get to see the upgrades. And also, listening to an awful lot of comments on last week's video, when I do these updates I'm also going to give it some treasure to go inside. So I really hope you've enjoyed this upscale build, and if you have, please do give the video a thumbs up. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. If you'd like to support the channel, there's always super thanks in the comments, or become a channel member and get your name on a brick, or use my affiliate link when you're buying from lego.com. And all those things will really help me out in buying the parts I need for this huge upscaled snack bar. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below, but above everything else, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe for more LEGO videos.